Welcome to Beyond Your Why podcast, where we go beyond just talking about your why and actually help you discover and then live your why. You see, we believe that knowing your why, that driving force behind every decision you make and every action you take, is the essential first step to really knowing yourself. It allows you to move forward faster and have a bigger impact. If you're already a fan of the show, then you know that every week we talk about one of the 9 whys, and then we introduce you to somebody with that why so you can see how their why is played out in their life. This show will be more powerful for you if you've already discovered your why. If you still need to do that, head over to WHY.os and discover your why today. It'll only take you about 5 minutes. Now, let's meet today's guest.
This week, we're going to be talking about the very rare why of simplify. So if this is your why, then you are one of the people that makes everyone else's life easier. You break things down to their essence, which allows others to understand each other better and see things from the same perspective. You are constantly looking for ways to simplify, from recipes you're making at home to business systems you're implementing at work. You feel successful when you eliminate complexity and remove unnecessary steps. And so today, I've got a great guest for you. He is a perfect example of this. And his name is J.M. Ryerson. And he is a successful entrepreneur and leadership coach. And he has founded and sold 3 businesses. With over 20 years of experience in business and sales leadership, he now helps leaders and teams achieve peak performance through coaching, speaking, and writing. As CEO of Let's Go Win, he's dedicated to fostering leadership, enhancing culture, and inspiring personal growth. JM, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. And, you know, it's funny because as you and I talked, simplicity, I can't help it. Even prior, like, this intro is kind of short. Is that what? Yeah, man, it's slow, it's simple, and it's easy. So I guess it's par for the course for me. So, yeah, man.
That's exactly right. So, yeah, before we got on here, when we were talking, I said, is that your typical intro? He's like, yeah, man, that's good. Good enough. And so it's just simple, to the point, direct, no extra stuff, no fluff. Let's get to it. So let's now.
Let's do it, man. Let's do it.
Well, tell everybody, first of all, where do you live now? But after that, where were you born and what were you like growing up?
Yeah. So I live in Boca Raton, Florida now. That's been the last 3.5, working on 4 years. I was born in Madison, Wisconsin, but I only lived there for like a month. My dad was getting his doctorate there, and so I was born. And then we moved to Idaho until I was 8, grew up in Montana, which is really what I consider home still today. And I think when we talk about simplicity, that's where I think so much of that comes from. Is I like the way Montanans live. I like the simplicity of life. And I'm generalizing, of course. But for me, I say all the time, I'm a simple kid from Montana. How was I growing up? Man, if there was a ball, I was probably throwing it or chasing it or hitting it, or, you know, I was involved heavily in sports. It's how I identified the majority of my life until I had 3 knee surgeries. And then at some point it was like, okay, you're no longer that athlete. And so after that, I just ended up, but anyway, I guess you asked just about being a kid. I was active and playing sports and competitive, man. That's what I love, and it's what I still love today.
And what was your most competitive, what was kind of your thing, your sport, or if there was one?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because my best sport by far and away was swimming, and it wasn't even close. However, I didn't love it. And so my favorite sport was actually playing basketball. And that's what I ended up playing in college. And you couldn't convince me I wasn't playing in the NBA. Even after 2 knee surgeries in high school, I still was like, oh, I can do this. The 3rd knee surgery in college kind of knocked me off that pedestal. But so, yeah, man, I guess my best sport was swimming. I just didn't love it. So basketball is really the passion that I pursued.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a minute. In sports, what was it that made you one of the top performers, if not the top, right? What was it that made you good?
Yeah, I think it's the same thing that's when I get asked that in business, it's the same thing. I don't know how to quit. Legitimately, I don't understand the concept of quitting. So I may get knocked down. In fact, I do all the time, but I'm just going to get back up and get back up. And so basketball is a great example. I guess it was my junior year. I was having a great year and I blew out my knee middle of the season. And every scholarship offer I had basically was gone. And, most people, I guess, would fall back into, you have a full ride to any Pac-10 school at the time, out there for, go pursue that. And I just was like, no, man, I can make this. I know that this is what I love. So I got back out there again, and I ended up going to an all-star basketball camp after the season. One coach basically said, hey, man, I'll give you books, essentially, and, room and board. And I was in. I was like, let's do this. So I think it's just the willingness to get back up and just do it again and again and again. I think that's if I'm hard-headed or just don't know how to quit, when I see something I want, man, I'm just going to keep going after it.
So let's talk about how simplifying worked for you in sports. Because I was talking to another gentleman who has the same why of Simplify, and he told me that he'd get into racing cars. And I said, well, how are you doing? And he said, well, I'm pretty new at it, but I've won 3 of the 5 events. And I said, how did you win it? And he said, well, I just simplified it down to 3 things. If I just follow these 3 things, that's all I need. And nobody can keep up with me. And I'm curious if you notice now looking back, how did you excel to the levels that you did?
Yeah. So it's funny, as you're talking, I'll go to me, but I worked with a professional golfer on his mindset when I first started Let's Go Win. And he had missed 12 straight cuts. And I was asked to coach this guy. Can you help him? I was like, yeah, I think so. So all I asked him is, why did you start golfing? And he's like, I loved it. And I said, well, do you love it now? And he's like, F no. I mean, just expletives like, I hate the game, blah, blah, blah. And I said, why don't you just go love it again? And he goes, really? That's it? I was like, yeah, man, just go out and go have some fun. Well, he makes 4 out of the next 5 cuts and makes top 50 in the world the next year. That to me was exactly like symbolic of, I don't know. I'm not going to tell him any swing thoughts. I'm not going to help him there. I'm not going to sit there and break down, what are you thinking over this putt? Or, it was literally, why did you start playing the game? Because I loved it. And that it was a coaching moment. I will say in swimming, I guess the one that I performed the best at, I just figured if I went out, that no matter the pain, I would just, if I could endure the pain, I would beat everyone. That was just my mindset. And when I was 12, I think it was, I had this opportunity to go break these state records. My goal was I had 8 events and I was going to break the state record in every single event. And I got through 5 of the events and my body started cramping and shutting down. And my dad was like, please stop. Like, this is not worth it. You're going to hurt yourself. And that was all I needed to hear is he told me what I couldn't do. And so I was like, all right, I'm doubling down. Now I'm really going to go after it. So it was just that thing where it's like, I feel the pain, but yet if I want to accomplish this goal, this pain is temporary. Hitting this goal is that you can't take that away from me. So I guess in my mind, it wasn't about the strokes or anything pretty. It was just go out there and go give it everything you had. And that was all I had. I wasn't thinking about my starting or how do I do a flip turn. It was literally just go out and give it your very best. And it worked out for the best.
I love it. Okay, so you graduate from high school, off to play basketball in college. Where did you go?
So I started at a place called Dawson, which is in eastern Montana, tiny little school. Played there for, 1 year, blew out my knee, then helped coach. Then I went over to University of Montana, and then I ended up studying abroad after that.
Gotcha. And what did you study? What did you get into?
Psychology and communications. Somehow, Gary, this is crazy. I graduated with 2 degrees, going to 3 schools in 4 years, all because my coach required 20 units a semester. So early, man, we just pummeled all the general eds. Somehow I ended up graduating with 2 degrees. I'm not even sure how today.
Okay, so you finish college, and then what happens to you? Take us on your journey.
Yeah, man. So I get back. I went to study in the Netherlands, and I came back a bit early because my grandfather was really sick. And when I came back, I expected I was going into a 5th year of college, but they were like, "No, all your credits transfer, so you're graduating." I'm like, "Okay, what do I do now?" My brother was graduating high school, so we took a road trip down to California. That we had my aunt and uncle lived in Northern California, then one in Southern California, and then Lake Havasu. Anyway, I ended up just taking my truck and a backpack, and I ended up landing in Northern California, and I never left, man. I started into my professional career. I worked for Enterprise Rent-A-Car right out of college, like a lot of kids do, and I learned really quickly, I don't like people telling me when I have to be there, when I can leave, and how much money I can make. And so about 3 years into that, I realized I really don't fit this model. I like to kind of have freedom. And that started my entrepreneurial journey. I ended up interviewing with the guy that ended up being my business partner for 3 companies, and just had a wild ride of like 18 years in the financial service world where we built sales teams, and it was awesome, man. I mean, we built some amazing companies and went on that journey until I wrote the first book for my kids, and then that took me on the Let's Go Win journey.
So let's talk about that for a minute. What you guys got into? You went from enterprise rental car to financial services.
Yeah.
Like, how does that happen?
That's a good question. Because today I would tell you, I don't know much about financial services. I never really did. What I realized is when I saw his model, I said, why don't you have this all over the country? And I think he was making like low 7 figures a year. And he's like, well, why would I? I said, because you can, man. And so after doing my sales for that year, he's like, well, prove it to me. So I actually opened our second location in Portland or Beaverton, Oregon. And I just, modeled what he had done. Came back about a year and a half later after that one was succeeding. I said, let's go, man. Let's take this nationwide. And it was just what I figured out really early, Gary, is what I was good at. And it's what I'm good at still today. I'm good at sales, leadership, and building teams. When it comes to financial services, reading historical returns and data and it's just not something I'm really into. But what I was always good at was connecting with another human being and saying, does this make sense for you and your family? And I may not know the answer, which 99% of the time I didn't know the answer financially, but I knew somebody that could help them. So I was just a connection tool. So yeah, man, that's how I kind of got into financial services, and then just kept building from there. As we sold the first company, we decided let's really go even bigger. So we came together with a team of, there were 6 total executives. It was awful, man. That second company, we crushed it financially, but it was miserable for 6 years. And then finally decided, you know what, we can do better. Sold out of that and then built into our third company. And that was a great ride. And I'd probably still be there today if I hadn't written the first book.
Okay. Well, then was the third company also financial services?
It was. Yeah, man. We actually helped teachers with their financial services, really their pension and their retirement's called a 403B. But again, I didn't do all that. What I did was really just build the teams around the country to go service these people. And my mom was a teacher for 39 years, so I had a definitely affinity for helping them. And they needed a lot of help because they were not being serviced properly.
Gotcha. Okay, and so then you write a book. Now, what's the book titled?
It's Let's Go Win, man, just like all my stuff. It's I wrote it for our 2 kids. My wife and I have 18 and 14-year-old sons, and the whole idea was I wanted them to have lessons from, my parents and grandparents and mentors and all the books I've read through the years. I wanted to put it in one book, just in case, I were to pass away, they had something in terms of the philosophy. So that's why I wrote it. I'd never planned on publishing, but the gal I was working with said, "You are selfish." I said, "Man, nobody's ever told me that." She said, "If you only share this with 2 human beings, you're selfish." And I said, "All right, let's do it." And it kind of took its course after that.
Nice. And so the book obviously was written for your kids, but who else would benefit from the book? What's the book about?
Yeah, it's called Let's Go Win, Keys to Living Your Best Life. So I wrote 12 total chapters, starting with vulnerability as chapter 1, which is really a funny, chapter to start with, because I was taught boys don't cry. Again, from Montana, it's pretty tough. It's like you don't show your feelings. But what I learned is that was honestly the most important lesson I've learned in my leadership journey is being vulnerable. And I go through the 12 chapters, end on transcendence, because that's, to me, transcend means to overcome self-limiting beliefs. And all in between there's simplicity, and there's mindfulness, courage and fun, and all these different chapters. Because what I wanted my kids to take something and say, if I'm struggling with a challenge in life, I can go to this and read this one chapter. It's quick, it's easy. And I have 3 things that I can go apply now to truly make my life better. And that's what I hope all readers get from it. That's what I've been told, is if you were to hop on a plane from New York to LA, you can finish the book and walk away and say, "Oh man, I have something good that I can go apply in my life." And so that was the general idea. And that's what I've seen people use it for, because my why is to inspire people to live their best lives. That's why Let's Go Win exists. And so that's really what that book was tailored around, is helping people live their best lives.
So when you talk about vulnerability, how do you define vulnerability?
Yeah, it's a good question, man. I think it's truly just being your authentic self. I think it's the ability to not be afraid in mask. I talk about that in the book is, masks are meant for parties. They're not meant for everyday life. And I remember early in my leadership career, I was always trying to look a certain way, sound a certain way. And it's just a lot of work. It's just, it's why spend all the energy trying to look a certain way? Just be your authentic self. And when I learned to do that, it's amazing how much more the companies grew, how much easier it was, how much less time I had to spend at work to do it. And then I started to apply it in my relationships, really being authentic with my wife, talking about things, my greatest fears, my greatest dreams and desires, which often people are afraid to talk about those things. When I did that, it's like, oh my gosh, this is so much more fulfilling.
So people that don't know who they are, how do they become their authentic self? How do you become vulnerable if you don't even know who you are? You don't even know yourself without the mask.
Yeah, I don't know if that exists. I mean, I don't mean that disrespectfully, but I believe everyone knows who they are. Whether they're willing to actually accept that's a different conversation. What I would tell you to really find it is sit in by yourself and truly just be with your thoughts. And for instance, I had forgotten about the Let's Go Win for over 20 years. I wrote about it in college when I was 20 or 21 in a journal, Let's Go Win. And then I had gone on a meditation retreat for 3 days where it was just me and a tent, a gallon of water, and nothing else. Like I had no food for 3 days, nothing to even write with or read. It was just me and my thoughts. And what came out of that is what's shaped my entire life, which is Let's Go Win. So I wrote the book, and then we were moving from California to Florida, and my wife had me cleaning out the garage. And I'm going through this memento box, and I find this journal with Let's Go Win with the identical logo 20 some odd years ago. I've forgotten about it. And I guess the point is that was always in there, right? My authentic dream, my hopes, everything. I had actually written it down early, but I forgot about it. So maybe somebody did forget who they were along the way. go be with yourself, just you and your thoughts, and you'll truly figure out what motivates you, what drives you, and your true authentic self.
Okay, so you write the book, and then how did that change the trajectory of your life?
Yeah, the gal that said you need to publish this, that's really what started the whole thing off, because once I did, I had people saying, "Hey, can you coach me on?" The first client was a good family friend. It was helping his son lose 80 pounds is what we did in 6 months. Now, I'm not a dietitian. I'm not a weight loss coach. It's all habits, right? And so I did that just pro bono, something that I enjoyed doing. And then the next project or coaching that I did was the professional golfer. And I found, Gary, that I fell in love with this idea of inspiring people to live their best lives. And it just literally everything else seemed a bit dull. I mean, the financial servicing, I could sit there still today, rake in money. It was easy, but it wasn't truly what was, getting me going. When I was working with people on their dreams and helping them any which way, just slightly guiding them or saying, "Hey, have you ever considered this?" And when it worked, it was like intoxicating, like a drug. And so it just took me on this path, which is, I loved what I did for 18 years. I loved building those companies and everyone I worked with, but that time is now past, and Let's Go Win is really my purpose, my passion. So it was writing that book and ultimately her saying, "You need to share it." And I'm so glad she said that, because it's been a cool journey and it keeps evolving every single day, which is awesome.
So then how long ago did you write the book?
Man, I should know this off the top of my head. Let's see. It actually published, February of 2020. And the only reason I remember that is the pandemic happened literally a month afterwards. So all these books, I had this whole speaking tour ready, and whatever it was, 10,000 books or whatever to go out, you hand them out, or, whatever it was at the speaking events, and the world shut down. And I remember going, wow, we got a lot of books to either, I guess it's good firewood, or we can hand about to people when you get a chance to see them. But actually they're all gone now, just, various things. But February 2020 is when it officially published.
And so would you now consider yourself more of a coach than, what would you term the direction of your life now?
Yeah, it's such an interesting question, man, because yes, that's what I do. I get people, "So you're a life coach, right?" And I'm like, maybe. If you called it a lifestyle coach, I'd probably say yes. And here's why I say that. All I really do is help people with their habits. That's what it comes down to. Now, how this company currently is really succeeding is I partner with small businesses. And my track record, Gary, is I've doubled the revenue of every company I've ever worked with. And so I'm looking to partner with, it's 3 to 6 for the rest of this year. And so it's interesting. Am I a coach? Yeah. But it's become where I'm just a partner in these businesses, and I just get to, I guess, be a coach, be a guide, help with the sales, the leadership, and, the culture. And it's amazing. They have these incredible companies, but they're just missing this small piece. So that's what I'm doing now. And far more than the one-on-one coaching is really one-on-one to businesses. And it's just been freaking amazing, brother. I've met so many amazing people and helping them live their best life and dreams. And then I get to be a part of that, be a small equity part. It's so cool.
So go through, how does that work? So if somebody's listening now and they think, "Hey, I'd like to talk to Jam about working together," who are you looking to work with, and what's the best scenario? How does it work best?
Yeah, it's a good question. I get this often is, who's your niche? Who's your niche market? And I'm like, small businesses. Here's what I would say. If you have a growth mindset, if you're coachable and you're willing to execute, let's look to partner up. Because if we align value-wise, so being happy, healthy, wealthy, that's the 3 values of my company. If those are in alignment with what you want in life, we might be the right fit. And ultimately what I do is I get in there and I work on the sales, the leadership. We work on building teams and ultimately, getting your culture clear where you're going. When that happens, it's amazing how fast everything starts to grow. And it's funny, going back to the simplicity thing, I used to always say, well, this is just common sense. And my wife said, stop saying that. It's not common sense to most people. It is to you, right? Making sure that people are clear on what their values are, how they behave, the goals they're trying to do. But if you were to ask 1,000 companies, 999 won't know those answers. From executive 1 to, executive 10, you'll get different answers. So really what I do is I say, let's get aligned and let's start rowing the boat in the same direction. So I don't know if that answers your question, but if you're listening and you're like, yeah, man, I want to double my revenue, let's have a phone call. Let's connect and see if it's worth a chat, which it's always worth a chat. And if we're a good fit, awesome. Let's go win together. I mean, that's literally the name of my company is Let's Go Win Together. And it's been fun, man. I will say, I'm working with a pickleball company. I work with a dental office. I work with a charter company. So it's all over the map, but the common themes that they have a growth mindset and they're coachable. And those two things together, you can accomplish some amazing things.
So it sounds like you just simplify it to a couple of things. Let's go get these done and we're off and running. Same thing, doesn't matter the business, same kind of couple things they got to deal with.
Yeah, it is interesting because, so often people they have these systems and it's like there's 100-point document on how to do the systems. Mine's not, man. Like we talked about when you were on my show, it's like my system's pretty simple. It's okay. What are we looking to accomplish? What are your core values? How do you behave? And what are we trying to accomplish? Or, what are your goals? And when you get those all in one, it's called a one sheet. Every company I work with, they have a one sheet. And employee from the CEO down to employee, the newest employee, everyone has the same sheet. And now it's like you just put your company on steroids because now everybody's clear on what we're trying to accomplish. It's not just I'm the secretary or I'm the, sales manager, but rather I'm the sales manager and here's what I'm trying to accomplish. Everyone's clear on it. And I thought that was common sense because that's how all my companies have operated. And my wife's like, JM, that's not the way it works. And I've found that to be the case as well.
So if I'm somebody listening now and I have I'm an entrepreneur and I've got maybe, 6 people working with me, we're all doing a lot of stuff and we're all running in a lot of directions. And it's not like we have departments and everything's, we got to cover for each other. How do you handle a one sheet for something like that?
Yeah. Well, you're right. You're doing a lot of things. And typically, and in this scenario, there's so much redundancy that's happening. It's crazy. So the core 3 things. With that scenario, what I would want to do with the six people in that company is, what are your core 3 things that you have to do once we have the one sheet, right? And from the CEO down to the CFO or CMO or salesperson, whatever it is, what are the core 3 things you have to do in order to really support what you're doing? And I can ask that question, like I said, to 1,000 companies, and no one knows the answer because they're doing so much. They're answering emails and they're taking care of customer service and they're being the CFO and they're being marketing. And it's like, okay, cool. I get all that. I've been a solopreneur as well. But what do you actually have to do to move the needle for your business? For instance, you off air, you mentioned something. I thought this was awesome. You're like, I hadn't checked emails since like Saturday. I love that response. You know why? Checking emails is such a waste of time typically because it's just someone else's task list for you. It's not actually driving your business forward most of the time. And people argue all the time, no, man, I got to check my emails. Well, okay, tell me why. I'm all ears for it. Well, I have to be up to date and I got to make sure I'm not letting anything slip through the cracks. I was like, cool. Is that part of your core 3 that's running, like driving the business? or is that having you feel like you're accomplishing things? And typically the answer is always number two. So I love that you said that. I was like, oh, this guy knows his core three, man. He knows exactly what he needs to do. He'll get to the emails eventually, but it is not priority 1, 2, probably even priority number 15. It's somewhere, but it's probably underneath that.
Yeah, I'll check them twice, for 10 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes at the end of the day, and that's it. I'm not going to live and die and sit inside my email for the exact reason that you're talking about. But, I wish I could say I've perfected everything, but definitely I have not. So again, you want to work with companies. You're not looking to work with big corporations. It's more like the small to middle-sized company.
Yeah. So I did research not too long ago. There's 33.3 million small businesses in the U.S. today. And how they define small businesses, there's 500 or less employees, which would fit what I work with. It's not that I can't work with large corporations. What I've found when I've worked with them, it's a really slow-moving thing to ever change anything. And I don't really love slow. I like to be able to really affect change. So I've found that small businesses really, that if you're making, I don't know, low 7 figures, you want to take it to the next level, let's do it, man, because it's really not a lot of tweaking that needs to happen. So it creates this awesome win-win, man, where they're doubling their revenue. I get the small piece of equity. It's like, and everybody's happy. So yeah, it is that small size business. Employees is interesting because I've worked with, even my third and second company, there was over 1,500 to 2,000 1099 consultants in that world. But it worked really effectively with them as well. But it's really when you have a lot of the corporate and the bureaucracy where it's like, that's probably not my world, man. I'm a t-shirt and jeans kind of guy, so I don't like a lot of the red tape. But the small businesses, it's just, I love working with them.
So, Jam, what's the best piece of advice maybe you've ever been given, or the best piece of advice you've ever given?
That's a big question, Gary. I'll go with something that I was told by a mentor. His name's Tom, and one thing that Tom does is he reaches out to 3 people every single day, and no expectation of a return. He sends a text every morning, and he just says, so it'd be to Gary, hey, Gary, I just want to let you know how much I value you and how much you meant in my life. I just want to let you know that I'm thinking of you and I appreciate everything that you've done, and just sending love out. Now, he erases the text. And what I found interesting about that is he's not doing it for anything to be reciprocal, but rather he's just sending love out there. And Tom started doing this years ago. He's like, it's one of the best things that he can do because it starts his day off in a way that he's improving someone else's. Just maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe they're literally on the verge of divorce, or they're really depressed. And he's had stories, and I've had the same, where you send it out and somebody's like, thank you so much. I can't express to you how much this meant to me this morning. You literally changed my life. And it was just a text. It was like, a 2-minute text that you send out. I think it's one of those things where we forget often to just send love out to other people and just let them know how much they mean to us. So I love that. I don't do it religiously. It's kind of fallen in and out of my routine through the years. But every time I get reminded of that, I'll probably start doing it tomorrow for a while, because I love what comes from it. So many great things will come from that.
Well, you said he writes them but erases them.
Yep.
Doesn't send it.
No, I'm sorry. He writes it, sends it, and then erases it. And the reason he does that is he doesn't want to sit there and expect something to be sent back to him. He just wants to send love out there. And if something comes back, great. That's gravy on top. But really, the whole idea is sending it out and then erasing it, so you don't expect, hey, I sent Gary a text a week ago and he didn't get back to me. It's like, no, man, send Gary a text. He got it. Hopefully he felt the love and you move forward.
Got it. Well, JM, if there's people listening that want to work with you, connect with you, what's the best way for them to find you?
Yeah, letsgowin.com or Let's Go Win anything. Gary was on my show, Let's Go Win podcast. I would just say go there. You can email me at jm@letsgowin.com. If you're looking to double your revenue, if that's of interest to you, or let's just say you're struggling, I love connecting with human beings, man. It's truly something that I get a kick out of. So hit me up and let's connect and see if there's anything I can do to make your life better. And if not, at least I'll have another connection in life. And yeah, man, I really appreciate that.
Awesome. Well, JM, thanks for spending the couple hours, about half hour with us. So, and I look forward to us staying in touch and helping each other. So thanks for being here.
My pleasure, brother. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate you.
I really hope you enjoyed today's episode and that through today's guest, you heard how important it is to know your why and how impactful it can be in your life and the lives of those around you. Be sure to head over to WHY.institute.com and discover your why today. Remember, the more you know about yourself, the more you'll know about others. I'm Dr. Gary Sanchez, and I'll see you on the next episode.